Guys, I want to just read this real quickly because it was actually a comment about the debate, which I think is relevant. So Eric Stryker posted this on Telegram right after the debate, and it says this: E. Michael Jones is objectively wrong that race is a Protestant/Jewish, etc. social construct. It could be argued that Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand, who expelled all Moors and Jews after the Reconquista, were the first racialists. They believed heresy was inherited. What are your responses to that take?
Can I go first? I want to go to bed.
I got to sleep soon too, Tercio. Yeah, go.
Okay. So first of all, he's retarded because Judaism and Islam is not a heresy. A heresy is basically you have to be part of the group that needs to accept a set of doctrines and then deviate, like not accept a part of doctrine. That's heresy. So if you're Catholic and somebody from a Taoist, a Buddhist is not a heretic for Catholicism. Okay. So he doesn't know that. And second of all, oh my God, like again, this is the problem with these people, which they don't recognize the political dimensions of the word race in the present and in the past. But most importantly, they need like in the past. So when the Jews and the Moors, the Muslims, were kicked out of Spain, it wasn't racial. It was political. It was for political reasons, and they were basically treated as a political class, which very conveniently you could have the heuristic of ancestry to sort of like identify potential political subversives, right? But the idea, it was not racial at all, because he also, these people, it's so enraging because it's like the policy was not expulsion alone. It was conversion or expulsion.
Well, and a lot of these Moors were like genetically Spanish too.
That's also yeah. That's also the other thing. It's like they think that they were just completely separate groups. Like no, this included genetically as Spaniards. Of course, the Spanish wouldn't know about genetics, but they knew about ancestry.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, well, because some of the Mo-based Celt Ibrians converted to Islam when it was politically expedient to do so.
Many
exactly. And so they were treated. These were political categories, and we already talked about it. But it's good to at the end of this, the end dish of the stream, to say it again. People in the past had no concept of biology. Okay, they saw differences. We would call them now biological differences, but biology was not a thing in the past. So they were not thinking in biological terms. They were thinking in other terms. Okay, they would see differences in physiognomy or whatever you want to call it, physical differences and all of that. But this type of policy that the Spanish Empire enacted, and Pureza de Sangre as well, because many people just don't get past the title or past the name of the policy, Pureza de Sangre, and they think like, oh, see, Puritanism, one drop rule is the same thing. It's like no, it was political. It wasn't like the Spanish Empire was not a modern, progressive, multicultural, race blind empire. Okay, liberal thing. It was a very much empire of its time. The difference is that it did not ascribe essential characteristics to people. Okay, and whenever discrimination, exclusion, whatever happened, it was on political terms. Okay, because they were not stupid and they didn't want to have potential subversives in positions of power. Same with Pureza de Sangre in the Americas. They were not going to hand over positions of authority to recently converted pagans that they didn't really know what they were going to do, right? Like they didn't even know, they couldn't guarantee that the conversions were legitimate, that they had really renounced paganism, that they had understood Catholicism. It's
isn't that super reasonable?
It's super reasonable. But these
actually, we should go back. Like, there's a bunch of like new American Catholic converts to Catholicism, especially because of political reasons.
Yes.
You've seen a bunch of right person shit. We should go back to that distinction between like all
yes.
So we shouldn't trust like all this why Anglo Saxons converting to Catholicism,
Yes. So totally sensible, logical decisions not based on race as we understand race today, or as people like Eric Stryker understand it today. And this is the fallacy that they always commit, is that they project their like not even modern understandings, but their particular understandings of race onto the past. And they're seeing, like, just like progressives, they go back in history and they see racism everywhere. They also go back and see racism everywhere. The difference is that they think is racism is cool, so they think it's like, see, based. You know, Isabella was a racist. Queen Isabella was a racist, so the Spanish were based. Whereas, like, a progressive would go like, oh my God, look at the horrible Spanish, how horribly bigoted they were, and it's just nonsense. It was political, and you can see how it was political in the way that Pureza de Sangre in the Americas did not evolve into one drop rule, or forever, again, essentialist assignments to people, but it evolved into basically mejorar la raza, which was that people would get into the better political category. You could get into whiteness. You could buy whiteness. It was political.
Well, notice how politically they can kind of control what your opinion on certain Muslims are supposed to be. So, like, what do I mean as an example? Well, the media will tell you that Palestinians are terrorists. The media and like these institutions will say that Islamic Spain was awesome. There was just, everyone was just so happy, everybody involved. Then they'll say the Taliban is like the worst thing that ever happened in existence. And then you got to feel bad for the Uyghur Muslims in China. They can do this to all sorts of different groups all the time, and it's entirely fucking cynical.
Yep.
I think to follow what Tercio was, or Tercio, you wanted to finish your point? Or
no, I was saying that was a great point. I hadn't thought about it.
I want to say that to follow what Tercio was saying is that, of course, like they deal with, like, this is the same issue. Like, there's a lot of like the academics that like to attribute like to Spain, to like Isabella and Ferdinand, like some sense of like racialist ideals, which is not true. I'm not going to repeat what Tercio said. I agree with him, but also, like, we're talking about Isabella, the queen that basically commanded the natives to marry the Spaniards, and the Spaniards to marry the natives. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. But they'll cope and claim that, like, oh, well, Spanish people that are pure were always at the top, yada, 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 even though, like, that wasn't really the case. But, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, class played a big role, and we've covered that.